Welcome to PACKOLUTION. In this podcast series, you'll hear the experts of the packaging industry talking about sustainability and the future of packaging. It is brought to you by Vatron and hosted by one of its founders, Michaela Wachtel, and Sales Director Ton Kniepscher.
Welcome to another episode of PACKOLUTION, the disruptive podcast brought to you by Vatron. Today we have Holger Grzonka from Siemens as our guest, with whom we will be talking about the views and experience of a global player in the packaging market. Welcome, Holger.
Thank you for inviting me to this interesting podcast series. I really appreciate being part of it.
You're welcome. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your career path?
With pleasure. I've been with Siemens Industry for 22 years, and I have held various positions during this time, but all had to do in some way with automation and with packaging machines. I started in application consulting, later on worked in marketing and as a sales manager. In my current position, which I assumed in 2017, I've been leading a technical sales team focusing on our packaging machinery customers in Germany. We basically help our customers to apply our automation and digitalization technologies to their machines in order to make them more flexible, more reliable, and more productive.
I'm sure some of our listeners from the consumer side are wondering how Siemens can be linked to packaging. The company Siemens is more likely to be associated with washing machines and similar household appliances in most people's mind. Can you enlighten us, please, on what Siemens does?
You're right. Siemens is a well-known brand in the white goods sector. From a customer's perspective, many people think about dishwashing machines or refrigerators when they hear the name Siemens. On the other hand, Siemens Industry, where I'm with, focuses on automation and digitalization in the industry sector. Our products help to run factories efficiently. For example, in the automotive sector, when it comes to manufacture car bodies or assemble the cars, in the food and beverage industry to make bread, cheese, or chocolate, to brew beer, fill soda, or in the pharmaceutical industry to develop and manufacture new drugs, or in packaging machines to package all these products. If you go to the supermarket and grab any product, chances are good that it was manufactured and packaged by Siemens Automation. Technical insiders in the factories know the brand Siemens well, as we are the global market leader in industrial automation.
Siemens was founded in Germany and continues to be headquartered here. Can you briefly tell us about Germany's position in the packaging machinery market?
It is quite interesting that packaging machine building in Germany and my company have both a history that goes back to the 19th century. Siemens was founded in Germany 175 years ago as a tiny garage. Today we would probably call it a startup. Since then we have grown to more than 300,000 employees. And the first packaging machine was invented just a couple of years later in southern Germany near Stuttgart. And the industry has greatly developed since then. The area around Stuttgart has still the highest density of packaging machine manufacturers, so much that they call it Packaging Valley. Many market leaders in their segments are headquartered there, and many of them have a quite high export rate, around 90%. So Germany's position in the global packaging market is a strong one. I believe every fifth packaging machine in the world was built in Germany. However, there's competitive pressure from Asia as new packaging machinery manufacturers develop there. The German incumbents want to keep them at distance, and they innovate. They need to innovate continuously. Fortunately, it's in the DNA of the German manufacturers. They always find new ways to meet their customer requirements. The only thing that has changed over time is that in the past, innovations happened mainly in steel and iron, whereas in the future it will be more and more in software.
You mentioned Siemens in the same breath as a startup. Everybody thinks about Siemens now as a multinational and thinking that they were once a startup as well. So that's very interesting. You mentioned software. Digitalization is playing an increasingly important role in production. To what extent are your productions supported by digitalization?
We are in a comfortable situation as a company that our factories can benefit from advances in digital solutions early on. The reason is we apply new technologies like artificial intelligence, anomaly detection, edge and cloud computing, first in our own factories to optimize our production processes and test them out. So we get early feedback from industrial manufacturing that helps us to further improve these technologies. And by the way, we invite everyone who is interested to see the benefits of digitalization in real production environments to our factories, and we share our knowledge.
That's very positive.
Another important technology that's also quite related to packaging, reducing the carbon footprint of our products, is another important task we're currently executing on. We developed a solution that calculates dynamically the carbon footprint of our products. And it's called Z-Green. And the solution also tracks the carbon footprint of our suppliers in a secure and reliable way using blockchain technology. Because as you can imagine, most of the carbon dioxide emissions happen at the sub-suppliers. A fact that is also true for many packaging operations. Think of a soda bottling company. Also, the majority of carbon dioxide is generated at the manufacturing of the glass container.
This is sort of like a life cycle analysis, but then based on the carbon footprint.
Yes.
Do you see any challenges with the digitalization? Do you see things the industry still needs to step up?
Well, for the larger corporations, in the recent years, many of them have digitized their operations and transformed them to speed up time to market, improve product quality, and increase profits. But some of the small and mid-sized companies are still in the early ages of this transition. That's also true for the machine building industry, where the main expertise and innovation is related to the mechanical design. One way to deal with it and speed up the process of digitalization is to find right partners that can help with their expertise in this field. In order to support our customers in this transition, we introduced last year our Accelerator platform. Accelerator is an open digital business platform with the ambition to build a powerful ecosystem of partners who can jointly accelerate the digital transformation of their customers according to their specific business goals, even if we have complex challenges to resolve. And the key of this platform is interoperation and the power of many. So we as Siemens started with providing IoT-enabled hardware, for example, our controllers and drive systems, and a wide software portfolio that is also available as a service. So if you want to try out, for example, our engineering software before you use it, you don't have to install anything, just use the software as a service option and work with it right away.
And do I understand this correctly, that this is some form of helping the small and mid-sized companies to pick up on this digitalization as well, instead of just being the big ones? Because the big ones, as you mentioned before, have already gotten this started some time ago, but the small ones and the mid-sized ones may be lagging behind a bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's helping the entire industry to use the benefits of digitalization and transform their operations.
That's good.
In past episodes, we've talked a lot about plastic versus glass versus paper. From your expertise, which packaging materials are mainly used and why?
That's an interesting question. First of all, every material has its purpose and its pros and cons. For example, glass has a good barrier, which is often necessary to package liquid pharmaceutical products in ampoules, syringes, or vials. But it also has a heavy weight compared to plastics, and it can break. Paper and cardboard, on the other hand, are good recyclable and biodegradable, but for manufacturing, it needs more energy to produce them than plastics. Plastic is an all-rounder, but especially composites are hard to recycle and they often litter the environment. In recent years, I even seen a trend towards metals again. If you look at the soda cans, you see them more and more again in the supermarkets. Another trend I see is the trend of paperization, meaning that plastic is fully or partially substituted by paper. Examples are bags in the e-commerce sector, where, in my opinion, it works very well. You see it also for meat packaging, but in another combination, there it is laminated cardboard used instead of plastic trays. And here, the recyclability of this compound could be improved. It's interesting to see where it moves, but I think every of the mentioned packaging materials have their purpose and will be used in future as well.
I think your statement can be improved for a laminated meat tray is a nice understatement. Basically, when it was in a tray or in a pouch, it was monomaterial mostly and was recyclable. And now it's in this laminate material. And quite frankly, I can't see the consumer peeling off the laminate. That's my personal observation. What trends are you seeing in the packaging machinery industry? Because the packaging itself changes. Of course, the packaging machinery needs to change as well.
Yes, that's right. And this is actually my favorite question as the one, my first education in machine building.
Okay.
Packaging is a very marketing-driven industry. Individualization plays an important role here. You probably remember Coke's campaign, Share a Bottle with a Friend, about 10 years ago, when the bottles got their first names on their labels and sales went up by 10% or so. And it's interesting, even though the content stayed the same, customers like to be approached individually, and this continues to be a trend, in my opinion. So what does it mean for packaging machinery manufacturers? Machines have to be flexible, but also productive. And I believe automation and digitalization helps to achieve this. Another trend that regains traction in the post-corona era is sustainability. Packaging is needed to protect and preserve the products we consume. And after consumption, the packaging is thrown away. What happens with all this plastic waste? Can we reuse it? Probably. But at this point in time, I believe too many material is lost and ends up in incineration. Even in our country, with a very good collection system for plastic packaging waste, over 50% of it is still burned. And I believe there is room for improvement.
Worldwide, it's even 9% which is being recycled of plastics. So that's a long way to go.
Yeah, even worse. You're right. I believe using plastic film made out of monomaterial instead of the traditional compounds is one way to resolve it. The challenge here is to run these plastic films on the machine as efficiently and reliably as the traditional compounds. But there are solutions to deal with it, and I believe your digital heating technology is a great contribution to these efforts.
Yes, we'd like to help people with that, as you said, but we've started this journey some years ago, and we're seeing that now that the industry is picking up on the monomaterials for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some examples of good trends that became firmly established in the market, as well as perhaps some trends that disappeared before they were actually implemented?
If I look back the last 20 plus years I'm in packaging, there were some trends that have been adopted, and convenience being one of them. An example for this, when I remember the brick-style beverage packages 20 years ago, I could rarely open them without spilling. They had some perforation at the corner. The label said fold and tear off, but they forgot to add and spill over.
Yes, correct.
But now it's with the plastic spouts, it's much easier. You open the cap, pour out the milk, close it, it's tightly sealed, so you have a much better usability. Another trend I see is the single-serve packages that has been emerged. Think of coffee pad or capsules. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a good one for the environment, but customers like it for the ease of use.
You could, of course, argue that you don't throw away unnecessary coffee. You used one cup.
Yeah, that's true. So, it's always a trade-off. And there are new developments. There are capsules. They are degradable to some extent. I recently heard from a Swiss company. We'll see how it develops.
What about some trends which everybody was excited about and never made it? Some remarkable ones which spring to mind?
Well, not so much a trend, but sometimes innovations that look promising didn't develop that well as their inventors hoped they would. Well, I remember an example also about 10 years ago when a sport shoes manufacturers developed a new solution to replace the classical shoe boxes. So they replaced some of the cardboard with a fabric bag and could be used afterwards to store the shoes at home or when you travel. So from an environmental aspect, it was actually a good idea. But in the end, it failed because the retail didn't adopt this package. The boxes were not as stackable as the classical cartonboard boxes. And it was not so easy to put the shoes back to the package after you tried them on in the store.
More difficult to display them, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So in my opinion, in packaging, you always have to respect all aspects of packaging for preserving, protecting, for marketing, logistics, and the environment.
And you already mentioned customization before. Customization is a very powerful marketing tool for sales. How does this affect the packaging market?
Yeah, you're right. Customers want to be approached individually, as we have seen in the example of individualized soda bottles I mentioned earlier. So I believe this trend will continue in future, but it has also an impact on the packaging machines. Individualized products need to be manufactured efficiently, as consumers are not willing to pay a large premium, even though the products are customized. That means not only the packaging machines need a higher flexibility, the whole supply chain must be flexible enough. We have the packaging material supplier, we have the manufacturer, the retailer. So all those players together are the full equation. Digitalization of the entire value chain can help to become faster here. So for example, if you redesign today a packaged product, it typically takes over a year until you can see the change in the supermarket. So there is room for improvement, and digitalization will play an important role.
Time to market.
Right.
I think this ties into my next question. Of course, the corona pandemic has clearly shown that the established supply chains are not as robust or secure as would be essential in many areas. This leads to the discussion about onshoring versus offshoring production again. The basis of the discussion is the conflict for many companies, of course, to keep costs low versus security of supply. Where do you or Siemens stand on this, if you can allude to that?
In the last 2 years, supply chain restrictions have not only affected industrial operations, but also our everyday lives. There are a couple of reasons for it. At the beginning of the corona pandemic, investments in new equipment were postponed or even cancelled. Production reduced, and transportation was not as reliable as it was before anymore. After a while, the demand came back and was stronger than before in order to catch up with the needed investment. This is why you see the shortage of material was also, our factories were affected by that, as that of other manufacturers. So for us, it's electronic components, but sometimes simple parts like plastics and metal parts. What we do to keep our product lines running is, on one side, qualifying alternative suppliers. On the other side, increasing production and warehouse capacity. And we also do a lot of redesigning electrical layouts to make use of alternative silicon chip suppliers. And we continue to serve the German market from our main factories in Germany, where industrial controllers, industrial PCs, and motion control products are manufactured.
So you keep the supply chains as short as possible.
Right, that's the idea. On the other side, there's a lot of manufacturing these days happening in Asia, and you cannot bring all production back to us. You have to see that you get them on time, that you store them in between and keep the things running.
Yeah, I think the whole just-in-time discussion, as we had, of course, throughout the last 2 decades, this needs to be revisited, because this just-in-time came to a grinding standstill through the supply chain issues.
Yeah.
We've reached the end of this episode. Is there anything that you would like to add, Holger?
As a last word, making packaging fit for future, making it more sustainable, but keeping it individual, needs new technologies and innovations. For example, innovations like your heating technology, but other innovations from other contributors as well. And I believe that automation and software will continue to play an important role to drive those innovations.
Fit for the future. I like that. That's a really good statement. So I may quote you on that for some things. Well, thank you very much, Holger. This concludes another episode of our podcast, PACKOLUTION. Thank you once again for sharing your experiences and vision with us. Very interesting for us, hopefully for our listeners as well. Please stay tuned in this channel for more inspiring episodes of PACKOLUTION with experts in the packaging industry.
Thank you.